each of us will make some individual comments, and then we'll have a dialogue. And I think all of our hope here is that we will be very respectful, but we want to push the envelope a little bit on progress and the pace of progress, because we're encouraged that things are changing. We're encouraged that things are improving, and we are seeing the improvement in our business results. So we want to be able to show that. I just want to give as an example the Emerson position in India, just to give you a feel for what that might look like. And Emerson is a medium-sized company. We're not a gigantic company. Just under $20 billion in sales this coming year. So that's the size of the company, and you'll see the investments that go with that. We are primarily an automation company. And our strategy in India is summarized pretty simply, and it has been that way for a while, and that is India for India. Meaning what we sell in India, we want to make in India. What we need in terms of new technology, we want to invent in India. And then we want to use India as a hub for the region. And the way we see it is India is the lead for all of our activity in the Middle East and all of our activity in Africa. And the same applause that you gave me for saying India for India, when I go and talk to my friends in the United States, what we sell in the United States, we make in the United States. And it's also true in China. What we sell in China, we make in China. So that model, I think, is the model of the future. But it is the model that demonstrates a multinational's commitment to the market. You don't just export or import. You become part of the fiber of the economy. So very important. So this is Emerson's position in India, and you can see we're located in a number of cities doing a variety of work. We've been in India in earnest since 1971. We've worked our way through a number of different governments over the years. I must say the most improvement we have ever seen is now. And the last 3 to 4 years, very significant improvement, and I will share some of that with you. But trust that we are very committed to India today, and I know some of you do this work as well. As we project forward, what will the world look like in 2050? India will be the second largest economy in the world, and most likely the innovation hub for the world. And if you're a multinational corporation like ours, and you see that as the future, the sooner you get on board, the better. So we have that attitude. Now, the Make in India initiative that the Prime Minister so aggressively has been out promoting and arguing, we believe makes tremendous business sense. This is a good program, it's a strong program, and it is delivering results for companies like ours and encourages companies like ours to continue to invest as we move ahead. Key areas on the investment of capital and how important that investment can be made. The improvements there are very important. So much help. The licensing, the IP protection, and you can't turn the news on in the U.S. today and miss somebody arguing or complaining or concerned about IP protection. It's a global issue, and the improvements in India are excellent. More is needed, but real improvement. The improvement in the manufacturing infrastructure is real, and we are taking advantage of that. And then obviously, the marketing of the improvement. It's very important when you make improvement that you just don't stay quiet. It's very important when you make improvement, you share that the improvement has been made so others can benefit. But this entire program in the Make in India has helped us to make more investment. And so $750 million of investment is what's been underway for us. And the drawing that's in front of you is for a mega campus outside of Pune in Chakan. So to add to that footprint that I showed you earlier, the largest manufacturing campus that Emerson will have worldwide will be in Chakan. And it's very curious, it's again, the strategy is India for India, so to meet the needs of India, but to meet the needs of the Middle East and Africa, drive this investment. So we're very happy with that. And I would argue that a number of years ago, it would have been impossible to make this investment. Today, it is very possible. It used to be almost impossible, and many of you here know better than I, to acquire the land necessary, to acquire the permits, to get the licenses, to get things in real time, to be able to execute a project like this would be very difficult. Today, it isn't, I wouldn't say it's not easy, but you get real help. And you get real help from the government at the central level as well as in the state. And the big improvement that I've seen is the result of the coaching of the Prime Minister to the government. The areas of real improvement then that I would just like to highlight here, and we're going to discuss in more detail, the ability to get a business license and to get land approvals in real time, and the Invest India organization and their ability working with the government to get these things done has been terrific. The ability to get import-export licenses, real improvement. And these are, some ways simple things, but if you can't get the license, you cannot grow. You cannot make the investment. Movement of key personnel and the ability to move people to where the work is most critical and get the best talent in the most critical area. The whole Make in India I talked about, the whole area of Invest India and facilitating the classification of goods. Lots more work to do, but real improvement. And that classification, these are the kinds of things that allow India to be connected to the global economy. These are the kinds of things that take it out of isolation to becoming a world leader. So very good progress there. And then finally, the movement of money. And it's been a fascinating time to watch the demonetization, the digitalization of the movement of money, the way business transactions have become more secure, less corrupt, easier to apply the appropriate taxes that are needed to support all of this activity. Very well done. More to do. The opportunities for continued improvement, and as a multinational, we get people that like us and we get people that don't like us sometimes as multinationals. But really what's needed is flexibility and moving money around the world. We want to build a campus in Chakan. How do we move the money to India to build the campus? We make a profit, we need to move the money inside of India and outside of India. India is not yet connected to the global financial system in a transparent, easy way. Progress is being made, But for India to move from its current position in ease of doing business, where it was at 131st, now up to 100, and you can feel and see the improvement, to go from 100 forward, much of it's centered in the ability to move money in a secure, proper way where all people are treated properly, and the government continues to be able to see that the transactions are properly done and the taxes paid and the investments made. But that's an area where continued progress is needed. And then the final point that I will make, and this is everybody has a personal, maybe not everybody, but I have a personal argument that I like to make whenever I'm in a group in India. And the government requires what's called L1 bidding for many projects. And if you're in the project kind of arena, L1 bidding is something that you are challenged by. And I understand the motive behind it, but what it does is it makes everybody have to have the same specification to be able to bid. You need multiple bidders, so you take new technology out of the equation. And so I continue to push the government to consider Swiss models or other models that allow new technology to be embraced, so that if we build a new power plant in India, it's at the newest and best and safest and cleanest technology versus the technology of the past. So another area for improvement. But the key message is India is open for business. India is embracing foreign direct investment, like from a company like ours, in a way that we have not seen in the past, in a way that is making us very encouraged to continue to invest and look forward to not next year, but 30 years of prosperity ahead. Thank you. Dan, you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for that wonderful overview of your company and your work in India. I'm Dan Bryant. I'm with Walmart. Walmart is a large multinational that started out as one store 55 years ago. A gentleman, a hardworking, inquisitive gentleman named Sam Walton had a vision that not just the fancy rich people in cities, but that real people in rural America should be able to get quality goods, consistently quality goods, at a low price. They shouldn't have to overpay, and they shouldn't have to drive to the city in order to get the goods that their family needed. And Sam was a very hard-working man. He was very humble, and he walked around a lot and drove around a lot. Ultimately, he taught himself how to fly a plane. And he had a little plane that he maintained himself, and he would fly around in that little plane in order to look at how other stores were being successful in meeting the needs of people around the country, around his region of America, in South Central America, in Arkansas. And that little store grew, and it grew in no small part because Sam had a talent for believing in people. So he believed in customers and thought they deserved to get quality goods at a low price wherever they were. And he believed in the people that he invited to join him at Walmart. We call them associates. They're our employees, but we call them associates. And Sam regularly believed in his associates, and together Walmart went to school on what others were doing that succeeded, and would incorporate those best practices into how Walmart then strove to provide quality goods at an affordable price for everyone. That company has grown. It's now the largest company by revenues in the world. And it has grown to that size in no small part because Sam's humility, his willingness to learn from others and to acknowledge where others are doing things better, or we need to learn from them, that humility continues to infuse the company. It's a core part of our DNA. And so we've been able to learn and adapt and grow, and that story of innovating on behalf of real people who have limited incomes, who deserve quality goods at a low price, it's all about innovating on their behalf. We now have some 10,000 stores around the world. We have between 150 and 200 million people who visit us every week around the world. We now have the third largest e-commerce business in the world. And that story of adapting continues. The happy, truthful headline that I'm delighted to be able to share with you this morning is that Walmart believes that we cannot succeed in the future if we aren't investing in a very thoughtful way in India. Walmart believes in India. The Walmart board and the leadership of the company are looking around the world at important markets and what's going on in those markets, and are assessing where can we invest and partner and grow. Where is there dynamism? Where is there an entrepreneurial spirit? Where is there a growing expectation of consumer goods that are high quality and affordable? And we have made the decision to increase our investment in India. And so, as Mukesh alluded to in his opening comments just a few minutes ago, we have made a decision to invest $16 billion to take a 77% ownership share in Flipkart, a most remarkable e-commerce company. It is the best e-commerce company in India. It was conceived here in India just not even 4 years ago with a valuation of just a few rupees. It was evaluated, its assessed value this past year was close to $20 billion because of the value that this Indian company has developed over 3.5 short years, because of leadership that's humble and willing to learn, leadership that's bold and willing to take risks, leadership that's willing to invest so that it can bring quality goods at an affordable way to more and more people in India. Save money, live better. That sounds familiar. That's part of the Walmart epic and always has been. And so we are delighted to be teamed up with Flipkart now. That initial investment is only the beginning of how we will be partnering with this remarkable company so that it can succeed. We have freed that company and its leadership up from having to constantly fundraise. We're now going to be backing it with finances so that it can continue to grow. And we're going to be bringing our learnings from 55 years of mistakes and observation and learning how to succeed in retail and how to build a supply chain so that quality goods are manufactured and made available in an effective, efficient way for consumers. And so our strength wherever we have gone has been that we build strong, durable supply chains that are ultimately only as good as the suppliers, as the people that are manufacturing those goods that are then made available to the consumer. I'm happy to report that 98% of everything that Walmart sells in India is Indian made. 98%. So that means that those Indian suppliers are manufacturing quality goods that the consumer is saying are quality goods, and we're going to buy them. And we are able to then be an ongoing enterprise. So we are going to bring our supply chain strengths to support what this extraordinary company is doing. Flipkart has 30 distribution centers around the country. It has a state-of-the-art logistics capability. It has a online pay capability. It has multiple apparel companies that are doing very well through their e-commerce platform. It's become an e-commerce ecosystem that arguably is the finest in the world. They've done something that we haven't been able to do prior to our partnership with them. So we now are coming in and partnering with Flipkart, and we are learning from this extraordinary Indian company as we provide financial backing and various logistics support. We are going to continue to strengthen our historic business. So we have 22 what we call cash and carry stores. These are stores that sell to other businesses. We sell to more than a million Kiranas throughout India, so that they then have these quality goods that they can sell directly to consumers. We provide e-commerce services to those Kiranas and small and medium-sized mom and pop stores. And we will continue to be building that out. Our plans are to increase the number of cash and carry stores from the current 21 stores to 50 over the next 5 years. We also have plans to be assessing how can we be working with Kiranas to do e-commerce delivery better. What if Kiranas became a local distribution platform for goods and services being purchased through the e-commerce channel? So we're looking forward to that. The other piece of our business is that we have a global sourcing hub where we source Indian-made goods to 14 other countries around the world. That global sourcing hub did more than $1 billion in sales last year and is growing rapidly. We will continue to support that business. Walmart globally also benefits from an extraordinary group of technologists and engineers who are best in class globally and are helping us be a smarter, more effective technology company. They are based in Bangalore. It's an extraordinary group of thinkers and doers, and we will continue to invest in that technology hub in Bangalore. Finally, just to note this in these initial comments, 17 years ago, Walmart didn't sell food out of the United States and not anywhere. We made a decision 17 years ago to begin to use our retail capability to sell food. Today, Walmart is the largest food company, the largest food concern in the world. 51% of our revenues last year globally were food related. So we've had this remarkable transformation in the company where this food business has become very important. So as a result, we've been building relationships with agriculture communities, with farmers all around the world. And so when you think about the possibilities with Flipkart, the largest e-commerce company in India, beginning to be a platform for farmers to sell their goods, for groceries to be sold by local small suppliers throughout India, the prospects for the Indian farmer are remarkable. The prospects for small and medium enterprises to be suppliers on that e-commerce marketplace are remarkable. We have developed multiple programs in India already, which we are expanding now, that are training farmers to do what's called direct farming, where they are connected directly to the marketplace of buyers and are equipped to understand market forces more effectively and make better decisions about what to grow, about the timing of growing. What does this do? It makes their goods more relevant, so they sell more. It makes their sales go up because they're the right relevant goods, which reduces food waste. So the prospects of Flipkart becoming this engine, this marketplace engine for farmers and small and medium enterprises in the food space is one that we find very exciting as we think about the future in India. So we believe in India. We are struck by the reforms that are underway and the way they are taking hold. We are struck by the spirit of entrepreneurialism and innovation that we see in India, by the talent that we see that we're already benefiting from in India. And we are thankful to be able to invest more in India and have every expectation of its remarkable growth going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Adrian, do you want to introduce yourself and make your opening comments?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Namaste. My story is somewhat different to these two fine gentlemen and captains of industry. 26 years ago, yesterday, I arrived in India for the first time, and I'm still very much there. It's been a tremendous journey for me, both personally and professionally. And yesterday, we heard stories in the afternoon about Indians who'd come to the US as immigrants and become true success stories in the US corporate environment, and the struggles that they had as an immigrant, and what they had to work with or didn't have to work with, and the lessons that they've learned. I'd like to share a few of my own anecdotes, having gone the other way as an 18-year-old young man moving to Sundaram in UP, with really no experience in India, no social network, and really just an intention on trying my luck in India, as many of you have done coming here to the US and trying your luck and succeeding. So my first business, after spending a year teaching English in a public school in UP, was bringing foreign students into India on expeditions and experiential tours across the country. And I set up an office in Manika in Delhi and hired some local staff, rented an apartment. And I remember very, very clearly that my telephone communication in 1993 was using the STD ISD booth downstairs 4 stories below my apartment. And I used to have to run up and down the stairs, and they would ring a bell when a phone call came for me, and I would come running down and answer the phone and pretend it was my office, and eventually I had to train them to answer with my company name, Asian Adventurer. And we relied on faxes and on those STD ISD booths. That was really my lifeline for communicating with my customer base outside of the world. Our peak seasons were in July and August. Primarily we were taking people on expeditions across the Himalayas. And so, as those of you who know Delhi well, May and June are not the most comfortable months to be in India, and certainly when you've got no air conditioning. So those stairs became harder and harder as the summer wore on. But it taught me a lot of very good lessons about how India does operate from a very low base and uses the tools that it has to make a success of business. My first employees were actually goat herders. They were people that I recruited to be porters and Sherpas and guides across the Himalayas, and by my 3rd year of running the business, I had 150 to 200 goat herders and shepherds and farmers who would escort my groups across the Himalayas, and I still wake up with cold sweats in the middle of the night thinking about the responsibilities I was carrying with all of those students that I was taking deep into the Himalayas in many cases. But I learned a lot about humility, a lot about dealing with people, and the challenges of managing what was a fairly unique team. No cell phones, no employment contracts, no banking, no boardroom. In fact, our boardroom was, a fireplace and a pot of chai and a stream in the background. And that was my first business. And so I deal with a lot of foreign companies now, which I'll come on to talk about, and I hear about their complaints, and I have very little sympathy for them. But we built a great business up. By the time I sold that company in 1998, and I was still then only 24 years old, I had 350 employees across the Himalayas, at peak season, helping me run these expeditions and tours, and I was shuttling from Delhi to Manali across to Leh on the highway and back. I didn't know any different. I came from a family where my mother runs her own business, always has done, my father the same, and my two sisters always have run their own business in school, so none of us have actually ever worked for anyone else. It's just what we know, and we've worked hard to build our own business. I left India in 1998 and got involved in a technology business which globalized, and kept hearing about the India growth story, and decided that I wanted to go back and take a look at India more closely, and that gave me the idea of setting up the business that I now run, Sannam S4, named after an Andhra-grown red chili. We help foreign companies, primarily small and medium-sized companies, enter and expand in the Indian market. And therefore we're dealing with the challenges that businesses face on a different scale to the Walmarts and the Emerson, but nevertheless critical to helping India and the US succeed in achieving their $500 billion mutual trade target, which Dr. Aggie referred to. And so we play a vital role in facilitating that support and dealing with the challenges that companies make. When I set this business up in 2008, my first office, I went and found this office space. Again, it was May. I seem to have this, kind of penchant to be in Delhi during the heat. But I went into this office in Nehru Place, and it was a relatively modest office, 2,500, 3,000 square feet, and with the small team that I put together at the time, I said, right, well, let's get the landlord in and sign the contract. And on the day we went to sign the contracts, I had 35 landlords, which I had to sign 2 very detailed contracts with, and each of them owned a very small segment of that office floor. And there was one lady that refused to pay the same amount as everyone else, and she said, I want 5 rupees extra per square foot. And I just said, look, I'm not negotiating, this is just going to cause me all sorts of trouble. Just tell her we're not interested, we just won't use her space. And then my assistant said, well, Adrian, that's a little bit unfortunate because she owns the doorway. So she got her 5 rupees a square foot extra and still does. But the challenges that we've seen as we've come into the market are primarily different to the large corporations. They're not necessarily regulatory. We do struggle with moving money from one country to another, and our clients have found that difficult in the past, but that has got a lot easier. I think the environment that we operate in, people are focused on finding the right people to hire, finding the right routes to market, having distributors and channel partners who really will consistently look after their interests and drive their products or services into the market. Understanding how to build a cost base that is not designed in the US, but is designed and appropriate for India. 9 out of 10 of the foreign businesses that I see in India that don't succeed because they try and design something that looks like a US P&L and replicate it in India, as opposed to having an Indian business design its own P&L in a way that suits and is affordable for the market. And then, of course, foreign companies who are bringing in their goods or services face challenges with pricing, which is an issue when you're bringing a product from overseas. But we've seen many companies adapt, many small and medium-sized companies that my firm now supports entering the market. Companies who've put boots on the ground, who've invested in people and have listened to those people and taken that advice, those inputs and those insights from their own staff, from people, very much the way that Sam Walton did for Walmart, but in a much, much smaller way, and really understand how to build a business that is fit for the Indian market, as opposed to transplanting a foreign template into the country. The regulations don't tend to hurt the small and medium-sized companies as much. The administration does, the paperwork does, the efficiency of doing business does have a big impact. But it's very important for small and medium-sized companies to find that type of support. I was very lucky that when I set Sannam S4 up in 2008, I found a very good administrator and a very good accountant. Both of those young members of the staff are still part and very instrumental parts of my business now. And we have 200 plus staff, we have 350 foreign companies that we support. And many government agencies, many big corporations, the banks, the big four consulting firms do a fantastic job providing support to the large corporations going over. But the small and medium-sized companies don't tend to get support that's designed and fit for purpose for them. And something that we've been working on a lot over the last few years, and is why I moved to the US after living in India between 2008 and 2015, is how to design and develop that practical framework where small and medium-sized companies can succeed in India, where they can be part of a supply chain of the bigger corporations that are expanding their footprint there, and are really given the types of advice and day-to-day support that is appropriate for them. And that tends to be around people, it tends to be around administration, it tends to be around office infrastructure and the ability to get on and do what they're best at and not try and deal with all of the regulatory aspects. So I've learned a lot from that journey. I must say that having moved to the US 2 years ago as an immigrant again, I found setting up a business in the US and operating here much harder than I did in India 26 years ago. And I regularly tell the Department of Commerce this too. Multiple state taxes, healthcare schemes that are different for employees across the country, trying to manage 401k programs for employees here, trying to be a business that's small and actually can really efficiently operate. The amount of posts and notices and letters that I get in the US is far greater than I did in India all those years ago. So we should never forget that doing business in India is difficult for those that aren't used to doing business in India, but that's also true here in the US. And also as a note of comfort, because I know this is a concern for people, there's a great concern about Indian immigrants with visas coming into the United States. I invested in the US, I set up a company, I planned on hiring people. After a year I was thrown out by the US visa authorities and had to leave for 3 or 4 months and reapply. So don't feel that it's a particular dig at Indians or H-1B visa issue holders. It's just a generalist approach to immigration policy. But I fought my way back in after 3 or 4 months. And I'm proud to be part of the US immigrant community, and I'm also particularly proud to continue flying the Indian flag here in the US.
And so what you have is small, medium, and large business perspective, and like to shift to maybe giving some feedback from our view. And we all understand our view is just from the narrow view of business, but I think it's an important input for thought and policy as we think forward in India. So each of us will give comment on where we see the greatest challenge for economic growth that faces India today. And you want to go first, Dan?
Sure, but I want to hear what you have to say, Ed. In a sense, I think one could argue that the greatest challenge to economic growth in India today is impatience. What India has underway right now is simply extraordinary. The reform initiatives that have taken hold and that are producing results are noteworthy around the world. And yet those results are still very preliminary. They're not at all felt in a consistent way across India yet. And yet you look at what's happening, you look at the data, you look at anecdotal insights, you listen to the stories, and that forward progress, that great engine of the Indian economy is warming up. And we see it. We have all the confidence in the world that it's real. The question is whether or not this great country will stick with those reforms and continue to believe in that reform program and continue to build on the momentum, that initial momentum that we are confident is real related to those reforms in the Indian economy. As one member of a democracy, privileged to be with so many others who've experienced such a great democracy, oftentimes the liability of we citizens of democracies is that we think the results aren't coming fast enough. And we will often then take action politically that thwarts those reform efforts that are underway and can kind of cut those little rootlets before the full blossoming has happened. So our great hope as we are committed to India, as we feel privileged to be investing in India, is that impatience will not thwart that continued commitment to this extraordinary reform program that is underway in India. That would be an initial thought.
Great, Dan. Thank you. Adrian?
Yeah. I think, India's greatest asset is its people. We've been talking about the demographic dividend for a decade or more now, and some people are now concerned about the potential of that large dividend being wasted. And from my perspective, I run a people's business. I see that India's human capital is its single greatest asset, and leveraging that asset to the full is absolutely critical. And I think what India has got to look to do in the next 5 to 10 years is ensure that the tremendous intellectual capital that comes out of the country either returns or is kept in the country and is actually used to develop homegrown IP, homegrown technology, and India captures the value of the research and development of its brightest and best people. And I think at the moment the policy frameworks in India don't really encourage for that. I know there is work being done to try and encourage the current government, Modi-led government, to reform in this space. But I really feel that until India is able to actually produce, develop and own its own capital products and goods and services and technology, that it will constantly be playing this kind of base of the pyramid game where it's just kind of trying to keep running at 100 miles an hour, not getting anywhere. So I would say that was one of the biggest obstacles that I think needs to be overcome.
Thanks, Adrian. Well, there's obviously things in terms of ease of doing business that need to continue, and I believe will happen. There's improvements in finance and banking, hard work, hard regulatory changes, but I believe will happen. There's so much work to be done that will take 10 or 15 years to do in many ways. The thing I'm most concerned about is to build on Adrian's comment, but take it a little bit different. And oftentimes I hear the greatest strength of India is its people, and that's true. But the investment in the people is spotty. And what I really believe will happen is the university level, the research level, these areas are going to get the attention and progress will be made, but that will only cover 30% of the population of India. And the real economic driver for India is the 70% of the people that won't have the opportunity to go to a university. And how does that large group of people make progress? And in running a business, we need skilled labor. We need engineers. We're able to hire engineers. We now have more than 3,000 engineers in India doing innovation work every day for us. And we can go hire more engineers. If we want to hire technicians, it's very difficult. And there's a whole group of population that needs their education raised so they can work in the new economy. And the new economy needs some basic skills in reading and mathematics to be able to do the technical work that is going to be so prevalent and available if the people have the skills to do the work. And so this whole initiative of education, and education on the broadest level in India, I think is the thing that will drive the most economic growth. We see the shortage today. The shortage is going to be compounded as we look forward. And if the education of the broadest group of people to good, solid, basic skills will generate the jobs that the future will demand. But the policies in India in education are not completely formed. They're debated. It seems like it's an area of interest, but sometimes it's seen as almost too big. And people shift over to, let's talk about research. Well, research is important to our business, very important. But if we can't get technicians to run the equipment, to take care of the equipment, to keep things safe, to keep things clean, to take care of the environment, it doesn't work. So to me, the biggest issue is education of the broadest group of people. Please.
If I could just make a comment following up on Ed's observations. 3 years ago, Walmart made what was and is the largest single investment in the private sector in its workforce. It invested $2.7 billion in its U.S. associates, focused on training and education and increasing pay. And we have adopted an approach that might be called learning while you earn. And we pay our associates more for being upskilled. And by going through this upskilling training that we now have available, which is done in different segments, multi-week segments of training that will help upskill them for the totality of requirements throughout the retail sector, they get paid more automatically by doing that. We have a pathways program where they are trained as an initial matter in basic sector skills and interpersonal skills. Retail is often the first employer. It's often where someone's job journey begins. And they come into a retail store, and there's a lot of learning to be done. There's a lot of basic upskilling that's needed for that individual to begin to move forward on their career journey with growing competence and confidence. So we put that pathways program in place for all associates. Secondly, we've opened 200 academies throughout the United States, which allows 90% of our associates to access an academy in less than a 1-hour drive. And that academy is focused on more advanced skills, sector skills, and leadership training. This is part of building into them the skill set required for them to have a more effective career. We have trained 335,000 people in the last 2 years. We now have a sense of ourselves as a company. You know, what business are we in? Well, we're in the retail business, but we're also in the training business. And we now have embraced this identity as part of this upskilling imperative of being a platform of some scale that's always training our associates. So we think about challenges to India's continued economic growth, I do think that as India's confidence in opening up and inviting investment in India continues, companies like Walmart are going to be able to bring these learnings that we are developing from other markets, in our case, our training learnings from the United States, and to bring that capacity building capability into India. We're committed to doing that. We're learning how to train always. We're in an always-on training mode as a company, and we need to bring that to India.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the education that we're talking about isn't the role of government, it's the role of industry and government and the people together to get that done. All right, well, let's wrap up with comments on the greatest successes that we've seen under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi over the last few years, and what have we observed as the greatest success from, again, a business perspective. And Adrian, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the leadership that the Prime Minister has shown in where the country's going, setting its aspirations, and giving people the confidence to buy into that vision has been absolutely critical. That's then given him the bedrock to push through some hard reforms. GST has been talked about for how long? 10 years or so. He finally, broke the back of that decision and pushed it through, and it was never going to be easy. The demonetization program, again, very high risk politically. I'm sure there was, great debate internally about whether it was a good idea or not. He's had the boldness to enact such reforms, and I think in his, the first term will hopefully be a platform into a second and third. But I think how he's organised and structured the ministries with the campaigns, the Make in India campaign, the Digital India campaign, the Start Up India campaign, not all of them inevitably are going to be huge successes because each one of them becomes its own entity, but to be able to create that vision, create that structure, and then empower his bureaucracy to go out and deliver on those programs, I think has been a tremendous asset to the country.
I would echo Adrian's observation. I think the greatest success far and away is the increased confidence domestically and internationally in the consequential reform program and the ability of a government to meaningfully impact what we're seeing to be intractable problems. And that's not just of enormous benefit to India. I dare say the eyes of the world are on India right now, and as governments struggle with addressing their own structural reform issues, their intractable problems, to see it being done in India is a confidence boost around the world. I can say that business leadership and corporate boards are watching, they're taking note of what's happening in India, and they're voting with their feet. They want to be part of partnering with a people group, a society that is demonstrating that kind of resolve to address its deepest issues. So I would say the greatest accomplishment far and away is this increased confidence, which I think is having effects far beyond the shores of India.
Terrific. Well, the thing I'm personally most grateful for is what you both just referred to, and that is the employees that we have at Emerson. You can see it in their face and you can see it in their work. They are so much more optimistic about their future now than they were just a few years ago. And when they bring that optimism to the workplace, productivity is the result. A lot more work is getting done in the areas that are important to us. So that optimism is the thing I'm personally most grateful for. The other thing I want to point out, and I am far from a political expert in India, so if I encourage somebody or offend somebody, I'm sorry. But from getting business done, the thing I also very much appreciate is the focus on the states and the focus on government in the states. And the Prime Minister, from his history and success in Gujarat, and how to attract foreign direct investment to the state level, and what choices the states can make to move things forward. You don't have to wait for the federal government to do something. The states have huge power. The states have huge economic drive. And to see the states of India compete to be the best, very powerful. And the way the Prime Minister has coached, encouraged, and pushed the states and the local governments to be more aggressive and proactive to solve their own issues is another reason to be very optimistic. It isn't just waiting for somebody else, it's people taking control and taking action in their home. And I think the Prime Minister's leadership should be commended for that transformation. So any closing comments?
For the invitation to be here. As much as the progress has been noteworthy, it feels like it's only the beginning. And we want to do what we can in our own small way to continue to take advantage of this extraordinary beginning, but it's only a beginning.
Down to the words right out of my mouth. I mean, India's success story is never going to be short term. It's going to be built on really strong foundations this time. And hopefully businesses, both foreign and domestic, political decision making, domestic and international, will see India that way and will make the right decisions to benefit India over the long term.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to our views, and hopefully they were helpful. We, as a group, and we represent American business as a total group, and through the U.S.-India Strategic Partnership Forum, a larger group, we see many reasons to be optimistic for the next 30 years. So thank you very much.
Ed, Dan, and Adrian, thank you very much.